Yo, welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Tony.
I'm King K.
And this is Down2Talk.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all again so much for sticking with us through the years. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We got content just like this dropping every single week. In this case, it's the next year. Yes, we in the season 4. Here on Down2Talk, we've been going for 3 years strong now. And we wanted to start it off with a strong episode. So for this particular week, we have a special guest coming on, but instead of interviewing them, we're gonna have them interview us. And none other than Mia Mitchell. She's a local Houston photographer based out of Houston, Texas, of course, the H. But yeah, we're gonna put some of the photos up just so you can see and get a glimpse. In case you wanted to book her, this is where you need to go.
Facts. And a little known fact, Mia actually did our first photo shoot. If you go back to season 1, episode 1, she did the photo shoot and the whole 9. Very good job. And with this episode, she really dived deep. She got in the depths of Down2Talk, the growth and the little bit of problems that we had along the way.
Right.
And we just want you guys to come along to this journey. Welcome to season 4.
All right, so I get the opportunity to sit down with no other than the host of Down2Talk. We got King K, we got Tony. How are we guys? How are we feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Just 3 seasons in, and I'm feeling good, feeling blessed, man.
Yeah, same. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm feeling pretty blessed. Just to see it grow into what it has today. So.
Right? Can we embrace living up to the moment that we're in now? Like, just embrace the moment. All right? So let's get down to it, right? How do we get here? How do we, get to Down2Talk? What was that process like in creating this podcast?
Well, it all started back in 2019,
19,
right? I used to always go to the gym, and every time I go to the gym, I would see this guy here, and we would always talk about something intimate that's going on in our lives, and everything that's just happening in the world, happening with our personal lives. So
right.
I just hey T, let's start a podcast, and shoot, ever since then it's been up since then.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back some. How did you guys meet? Because you're bringing up the gym. How did y'all meet?
Well, this actually was a long time coming because we actually used to play basketball together back in middle school.
Middle school.
So this was a friendship that kind of transpired all the way back then. And like you said, we linked back around 2019, and I would always see him at the gym, and we'd always stop and just catch up and be like, how's everything going? So when he brought up the term podcast, I was like, I've been thinking the same thing. So then it just kind of coalesced right there.
All right. So you guys learned to, create a bond with each other. How were you guys able to create those relationships to those you bring to the show? What was that process?
Well, King K does most of the networking.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's
He's our extrovert over here. I know you personally, so I know that you got that introvert in you, so we got the extrovert, okay?
Just a little.
Here's the thing, me and Tony is different, right? We don't have the same personality at all.
Mm-hmm.
To paint the picture, if using a maze, right? And Tony would give you a blueprint, and he'll be like, hey, don't go here, your ex is there. Me, I'll give you that same blueprint. I'll be like, hey, your ex is here, don't go here. But I want to guide you and hold your hand through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Tony, he'll be like, okay, this is what it is, this is what you got to do, you do it. And it's kind of like a yin and yang, like a Shaq and Kobe type personality.
Okay.
And I feel like that I've learned so much from Tony just by his personality, because you gotta have that I'm not gonna hold your hand the whole time. I'm gonna need you to figure it out on your own. So that's kind of like the dynamics of Down2Talk. Sometimes you just can't have the same personality. And that's why we were so like successful with 3 seasons in, to like continue something, a bond, because sometimes you have the same personality, it kind of won't miss, but if you had a yin and yang, it kind of works.
Right.
I think your viewers want to know, because of course they see you in front of the camera and you guys work well and y'all have good conversation. What is like behind the scenes? How is y'all's relationship behind the scene, still working together, creating this podcast behind the camera?
Oh, it's terrible. I'm joking. It's honestly almost just what you see in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Almost just like a little bit more authentic, just off the strength of not having to worry about, being in front of the camera. So like you said, I think that illustration that you had in the last question was kind of like a perfect description. I think we both have grown into those roles that y'all see today, but for the most part, it started somewhere, and
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning, we weren't the same people, and it's kind of obvious, if you go and look at the earlier episodes. So it's definitely taken time, but as long as we both put in that work and that determination to want to get better, which we both do, then we see that growth in not just the channel but the relationship.
Okay. So what would you say is your biggest lesson through this journey? Again, 3 episodes now. I'm sorry, 3 seasons, excuse me. You got 3 seasons. You've worked with so many talented people, creative services. Like, what was the biggest lesson throughout this being in this business?
Just the, I say timing, because sometimes, like my side of Down2Talk is scheduling and meeting people and getting everybody together, and some things don't work. It's been times where I've called somebody, hey, they'll say they want to be on the show, but later down the line it won't happen, and turns out it probably wasn't meant to happen. So I take that into my life. Sometimes you want things to happen in your life, but it won't. But it all comes out to the greater good. So just timing and just having fun is what I learned through Down2Talk.
Right. That's what's up. I say for me, it'd be that dedication to stick with something, because even from the start, there were times where it was just like, is this gonna work out? And whenever you have those times, those doubts creep in, you start to, I guess, waver a little bit. And I know I had my times, and I'm pretty sure King K had his times too, but that willingness to always show up and get the next episode done, do what we need to do to progress for what we, the purpose that we started this brand with, I think was the biggest takeaway for me.
Okay. So let's bring it to it. You guys learned a lot within having so many people. What was your mission? What was your goal in bringing this podcast to your audience, your target audience? What was that message?
I know he's not gonna like this one, because I'm gonna take it from him. But it's changing the world one conversation at a time. Yeah. So from the jump, whenever we was at the gym, and we'd always talk about it, the biggest thing that we'd walk away from that is that we're not alone. So each time that we would say something, it's just like, man, I'm going through the same thing, or man, think about how many other people are going through this. So because of that, we just thought that it'd be a perfect idea to get this off the ground, to just let people know that they're not alone. Even if they don't engage with us, and they just watch from a distance, as long as they can take something from it, that's at the end of the day what I feel like we're working towards.
I feel the same way, but for me, it's a little bit of backstory for me, because like you said, changing the world one conversation at a time. On Down2Talk, we normally have conversation that you wouldn't normally talk about. Prior to starting Down2Talk, I was facing 20 years in prison, and I couldn't have conversations with my family, because my family never been through anything like that. So I was like, man, I'm stuck with these thoughts. I'm stuck with these feelings. I'm stuck with these unpromising results that I can't even see. So I will sit in my room every day like, dang, I don't have nobody to talk to. Nobody can relate to what I'm going through in the time going back and forth to court and seeing my face on the news all the time. So when God delivered me from that, I told myself, I was like, man, like there's a lot of people that was in my situation and they need to be heard too. Just like I need to be heard. So God gave it to me to be like, hey, you need to start this podcast and just get the conversation out, get the conversations going, because when people come on our show, and I commend them because it's not easy to spill the beans on camera. You know, it's not easy to get in front of the camera and talk. So I commend them, but at the same time, they doing it for somebody else. So I firmly believe that this is my purpose. I firmly believe that God gave this to me to continue to my grave, honestly. And, you know, and God blessed me with a phenomenal partner in Tony, you know, and it's been rocking.
You know, I definitely appreciate you sharing that, because it's not a lot of times you hear, you know, men, let alone black men, being that vulnerable, creating that space for people to literally, again, having those tough conversations or just wanting to be heard. So I definitely commend you for, you know, creating that space for yourself, but also other people. So, I mean, again, you guys are doing some great things. Are there any conversations that you had on your show that kind of like, you know, change your perspective in something? Like, what was an example that you guys had that conversations with someone on your show?
For me, it'd be the letting go episode.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Talk about it.
I think. Yeah, no, because for me, you know, there's a lot of things that go on in life, and you know, you can either learn from them or, you know, just kind of keep letting them happen to you. But one of the things that I took away from that was the fact that to learn something, to make it to that next level, you gotta let go of what you're holding on to. It's just dead weight, you know. You get that weight off your chest, and it's like a whole new world, because you see that it's possible, and it's a whole nother, you know, perspective on the other side of that. So I think making that decision to let go of the past, and, you know, even when you don't know what's coming ahead, that's one of those things that really stuck with me, because I had plenty of those situations that I had to just learn from the episode that we released. And in that case, you know, my life's been better since, of course, but, you know, it all starts from making that decision.
I think I had to say the rock bottom episode with Xavier. Yeah. Just knowing that when you hit rock bottom and you faced with all these adversities, you faced with, you know, not knowing what tomorrow's gonna bring, and you get through it. It's something about hitting rock bottom and you get through it, and you can look back and say, dang, I climbed that big old mountain. Like, God, look what God did for me.
Right.
So that episode was an eye opener, and we had a good guest in Xavier to represent that episode, to represent what rock bottom mean, because he was incarcerated for a while, and he's out, and he's prospering. He has his own business and everything. And when we shot that episode, that really was a game changer for us. And also letting go with Raphael Farley, you know, that's a good one too, because, you know, sometimes we are stuck in the past. Sometimes we have things that, you know, we need to let go in order for us to grow and be better. So those two episodes really hit hard for us.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So just leading into, you know, again, those people that you had, and, you know, had to hit rock bottom to get where they are now. Like, what were some of those motivation? Who are those motivation for you guys to move forward in what you do now in life, and also for the podcast?
Well, motivation for me is always resort back to the word of God.
Mm.
You know, he say he'll never leave you nor forsake you, and he has a plan for us all. So if you can take comfort in knowing what God says and believe it, then that will be your inspiration. That will be, you know, your stronghold to keep going and move forward. And my grandmother, Beatrice Williams, she was always a factor. My mother, my family was always a factor in that motivation to be there, to be that anchor when, you know, when I felt like down or felt like, you know, I wasn't enough. So I say the word of God in my family.
Yeah. Right there with you, bro. I have to say almost the same, you know. And, you know, big shout out to my parents because, you know, I think they was like a instrumental part of me being able to make it to where I am today because of all the things that I went through and, you know, having to make it through, you know, the passing of my father is one of the toughest things I ever had to endure. And again, that was like partially why the episode with Raphael was like instrumental to me because it, you know, it spoke to me, you know, real deep. And my mom has always been there to like, you know, show me that there's new light on the horizon. And she always told me, you know, every head is a world, you know, something that my grandfather told her and passed down. And that in itself kind of just puts me in that mind frame that, you know, it's really all about perspective. As long as you can get a hold on your perspective, then your life will be as good as you let it be. So I feel like that for me is like the reason why I am the person I am today.
Wow, you guys are really, y'all experienced a lot, you know, at your age. Like, so what are some things that you guys? I'm pretty sure, you know, as Black men, people want to know what are your, you know, release, your escape. Being Black men, what can you share some of those?
Well, me, I think it's huge in art. You know, like I'm a big creative person. I like to express that through like music and animations and, you know, just kind of putting something down that just wasn't there before. You know, it's power in a blank screen, you know, whether or not it's motivating or, you know, kind of daunting, you know, because you don't know where to start. Like for me, I think that it's really crazy and honestly inspiring to see what comes from the soul of the person that's, you know, holding the pen. And I think that that's like one of my biggest ways to like express my inner person. And I kind of just let that be, you know, what speaks whenever it's tough to speak in words. So.
Man, it's about the deepest I ever heard you. I ever heard this dude talk,
Oh,
man.
stop it. I don't
swear.
believe that. I don't believe that.
Come on, man. We're 3 seasons.
I'm about to say 3 seasons in. There's no way Tony's holding back.
I feel it.
What about you? What are some releases, some escapes?
Honestly, I just started working out twice a day.
Okay.
And
2 days.
2 days, every day. And I just find it peaceful whenever I feel down and whenever I, you know, I just go in the gym, work out. I am a musician, so I play the keyboard. I read. I'm actually reading this book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hayes. And it just teaches me how to treat that inner child that's in me. Because, you know, like we go through life, you know, thinking like, okay, I'm an adult and, you know, oh, this way. But you got to result back to that child that's within you because everybody has a child inside of them that needs nurturing, that needs reteaching in a sense. Mm. So for me, just, you know, reading books, working out, and honestly, Down2Talk is a release for me.
Yeah.
It's released
when
when I find people to interview or when me and Tony do a solo episode. That is a release because I am in my purpose. And I just feel so much joy when Tony come in and start setting up the cameras and he be like, okay, do this way, do this way. And I just find like I'm getting goosebumps about it right now just talking about it. And it's therapy. So I love it. And you know, that's just my release, making videos, singing and working out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like that's another thing I want to talk. Because what you were saying, I'm thinking all these questions to ask, like, because and correct me if I'm wrong, like sometimes a lot of things that we go through as a young age kind of, reflects who we are as a person. Like you talked about, relearning things. Like I'm a firm believer in that. And like, we're taught these things at a young age where we get the opportunity as adults to relearn a lot more, or relearn things that, our parents or people that we were around kind of like taught us this way, but in our minds when we were older, like, that's not right, or that's not how I want to walk in my truth and my purpose. And so like just to hearing y'all and like have those experiences, and like people need to know that, like normalize that, normalize relearning, because people are so afraid to step out into their purpose, or waiting for, or fear things to get into making those changes. So again, I commend you guys for doing that, and again creating those spaces for people to do that, because it's not heard of, it's not common enough in my opinion. So man, what else do I want to talk about? Because time is of the essence, and time waits for nobody. Was there a time where you wanted to give up this podcast? I mean, like, it's not easy being in this industry, and then again, you talk about finding those people, or when the timing is not right, or you have those hard days where it's just like, I just need to be alone. I like my me time. Like, was there a time where you just wanted to just cut it all off?
Let me go ahead and. Nah, yeah, because I mean, you said me time, but I'm big on me time. I'm huge on me time. Like you were saying about relearning, like I'm really big on me. You definitely have to learn how to unplug and decompress, and I don't think enough people do that by themselves. I think that's the reason why a lot of issues arise in society today. But regardless, I'm real big on that, and I feel like if it wasn't for this guy right here, I probably would not have kept with Down2Talk. If that makes sense. Like, honestly, had it been anybody else, I probably wouldn't have stuck with it the same way. Just off the strength of, like we were saying earlier about like the relationship, like it's grown, and he's put me in a position where I have to make the decision to show up too, and I have to be there and do the work and make sure that it stays afloat, because again, like the purpose behind it isn't necessarily for us. It's for the people that's listening, the people that's watching, that don't speak up for themselves.
Yeah.
That like you said, it's tough for them to, I guess, step into their own because somebody else influencing them, and they haven't necessarily broken that paradigm just yet. But walking in a purpose for other people is one of those things that again just gets me inspired to the point to where I'm just like, there's no giving up.
All right. So for me, I'm gonna take it a little bit closer to home. I know Tony about to rip my head off on this one, but it was the time I truly was like, you know what, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. It was that time, and Tony, don't get mad. It was that time when we had the event, and I did all the planning by myself.
Okay.
And here's when what I talked about earlier, how Tony would give you a blueprint and say, here, you go there and let you figure it out. So, and that's what he did. But I needed that. I didn't know until after. So I was doing all this planning. I was like, man, Tony ain't helping me. Man, golly. And then after everything was done, he was like, yeah, bro, I let you do that by yourself. And I was mad. But it wasn't until I got home until I realized, that was a test within the test from God. It wasn't him. It was from God. It was like, I took it as okay, God wanted to see how invested I was in to Down2Talk. So I had to, it was a test for me, not so much for Tony. It was a test for me, and I wanted to give up so bad because I feel like Tony was supposed to be there for me. And I was like, dang, bro, I'm not about to do it. I'm done. But after that, I learned, and God showed me, it's like, that wasn't for Tony to do. That was for you to do.
And to see how invested you was into it.
To see how invested I was in. So now that I feel like I didn't pass that test, I feel like, you know, God's gonna bless this to go even further. So it was a blessing in disguise almost.
Okay.
I ain't mad, bro.
Okay. So is there anything that you feel like Down to Talk, now that you've wrapped up season 3, like, do you feel like when you guys move forward, is there something you want to add more to the podcast? Is there something that you want to polish more? Something that you feel like, you know, maybe we should do this a little differently? Like, what is it? Is it anything?
I called Tony, a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hey, Tony, man, I don't know about season 4. I don't know what we gonna do. Because we didn't did, you know, hanging mics, you know, businesses and stuff like that. I was like, bro, I truly don't know what we gonna do. And he was like, you know what, bro, don't worry about it. It's gonna come. So I really can't say what we gonna do, but what I would want us to do to, like, get into schools and like Tony said, he want to be, you know, more with the community. So I'm all down for it.
Yeah, I was thinking that we got big plans.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've been kind of clipping his wings. He know it. I tell him all the time. I've been telling, you know, like, think big, but let's stay practical too. You know, like, since we started, we didn't, you know, thought about a scholarship and other things, like he said, about, you know, getting into schools, and it's all great and, you know, well, but what are those steps to get there? You know, right now we're walking those steps. We're going up those steps. You know, we're gonna get to the top when we get there, but for the most part, you gotta walk up those steps. There's no elevator to success.
Right.
So, you know, I think doing all of these things, like what he said about, you know, the event, it's prepping us for when we do get there. And, you know, it's a lot, but it's gonna be doable over the course of time.
All right. Well, you know, I can sit here all day and talk about all this kind of stuff, but, you know, I do want to wrap it up. You know, of course, we'll have more time when we need to, but are there any last parting thoughts or final thoughts you want to share with your audience? Hey, this is your time. Y'all got somebody to interview y'all. Y'all do all the leg work. Y'all got somebody like me coming in to kind of get to know y'all more and get your audience to really dive deep into y'all's thoughts, or any last moments, last thoughts.
First and foremost, you know, we want to thank you for coming out and doing the interview for us. Of course, you know, we got one of the greatest out in Houston to do it for us, Miss Mitchell, me and Mitchell. But as far as, like, parting words go, I've always been big on perception, I think. And even, you know, before, you know, we talked about what our old group was called Sonder Squad. The word Sonder, you know, is the realization that everybody in the world that you walk past is living their own reality. And because of that, you know, again, I attribute it to perception. So, you know, if that's one of the things I feel like everybody should become aware of, especially in the day and age that we're in now.
Saunders, go ahead. You brought it back, bro. Go ahead.
What I want to say is do what you love. You know, don't let nobody tell you you can't do anything. And when you start something, just know your peers is not going to jump on it. You're not going to be on the same boat until they realize that, you know, you're serious about it. Because when we started, we was trying to get everybody, hey, come to the show. Nobody was like, nah, we cool. But it wasn't until we start getting serious about ourselves and what we want to do, that's when people start, hey, those guys are serious. So if you start in a business, if you being an artist or anything, just keep going. Don't stop. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. And to my partner, Tony, man, I really appreciate you, man. Like you said, man, like, if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't been happening. Like, I wouldn't have the thought process that I have. I wouldn't have the discipline that I have. I wouldn't have that self-relentless that I have. All those things I've gained through Down2Talk, and you was a part of it, bro. I just want to say thank you, bro.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Again, thank you for the opportunity to sit down and talk with you guys. And of course, we'll get back momentarily.
Like King K had mentioned earlier, we really got into the depths of the essence of Down2Talk during this interview. We really talked about the background, like you said, the issues, the growth, most importantly. King K, what did you think about it?
Man, I think like it was very intimate. I feel like, just to hear your side of, the backstory from you and giving Mia that sense of like security, like she made us feel welcome to even talk about those things. So I mean, like, I feel good about that, man. It really made me look at us differently, you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I definitely get what you're saying, bro. Like that introduced like a lot of different facets of our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, again, we really got to the depth of Down2Talk. So props to Mia. Thanks again for coming out and shooting that interview for us. Did you have any words to top it off?
Let's get season 4 started.
Let's get season 4 started. Thank y'all again so much for tuning in with us. Again, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Content just like this drops every single week. Sometimes the next week. Really can't wait to see what we got in store for season 4, you guys. Thank y'all again so much for tuning in. Catch us next week or the week after. This is
Down2Talk.